I'm Sarah Dussault. I'm a former deputy mayor of Housing and Homelessness under Mayor James Hahn. And I'm one of the thousands of family members who has a brother who is homeless. My brother John called me last summer to tell me that he had finally figured out our family's secret. I was his mother, he said. I'm not, of course. I'm his sister. I am one of 11 children. And my brother is 38 years old. But I will always think of him as he was in his early 20s when he was first diagnosed with schizophrenia. His good looks landed him work as a model, and he was a math whiz. Today he's still attractive and wickedly smart at times, but his skin is weathered from years of homelessness, and he is missing half of a finger on his right hand from one of his many stays in a county jail. He is unmistakably homeless, but still charming enough to persuade passersby to give him clothes or a beer or to play a game of pool. His homelessness always starts with his stopping his medication. Eventually he gets into some sort of trouble, usually from self-medicating with alcohol, and he bounces from incarceration to forced hospitalization. For weeks at a time, John goes missing. Then he turns up in an emergency room, a police station, or a hospital. He's been picked up for throwing himself at cars, for belligerently talking to himself. He spent July in a hospital where he imagined that family members were with him. The hospital released him to a boarding care, claiming he'd been stabilized, but he stayed very briefly before leaving. They came and worked out a plan with John for housing and health care, but he changed his mind later that day, walking away from the social worker, walking back into homelessness. I found him again, but couldn't persuade him to accept help. He says that I don't understand his profound loneliness and that my options are not what he wants. His appearance has deteriorated. He's thinner and his skin is blistered from sun and cold. I tried to feed him, but he wasn't able to sit long enough to eat much. A few days later, he was forcibly hospitalized for a couple of weeks, but wouldn't allow the social workers to contact me. I again lost track of him until I checked the police records on his birthday, November 13th, and found out he was in jail. We made big plans about getting him a place to live and connecting him with services. I left him at a barber shop about to open because he wanted to get cleaned up. I went back after dropping my kids off at school, thinking things might get better, but by the time I returned, he was gone. For the next few days, I drove around with a full duffel bag of clothes and supplies looking for my brother. There are programs that work to interrupt this cycle, but they are few and far between, serving far too few people. As a result, stories like my brother's are not unique. It's not that money isn't being spent on him. Study after study from across the country has demonstrated that the cost of dealing with people like my brother, who ricochet from the streets to hospitals and jails and back, is exorbitant. I estimate that in the last year, the federal government, several counties, the state, and local communities have spent more than $1 million on my brother, John. My family and I live in dread that one day we will get the call informing us that John has lost his life. But my brother never gives up hope that he will find a girl, a job, an apartment. We had breakfast together recently. He had been released from jail the night before and walked through the night to Pasadena. He called at 6 a.m. and I went to meet him. I found him eventually. His medication had been stolen and he was holding on to a brick wall, talking to himself.
Good evening. We are all here today because the conversation of homelessness has created a lot of tension in San Pedro, the 15th Council District, and the entire city of Los Angeles. It's important that we diffuse this tension and work together to come to an understanding and a game plan for what we can do to achieve a win-win situation that leads to more housing for homeless individuals, getting them off the street, back on their feet, and positively contributing to their own lives and our community. When my office launched a dedicated Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority emergency response team just 8 months ago, we did so to help house and shelter the most amount of homeless people who are willing to accept services in San Pedro, Wilmington, Harbor City, and the rest of my district. Today, I'm proud to announce that the LASA's emergency response team efforts have led to 76 individuals being housed in either bridge or permanent housing, and over 1,300 referrals were submitted to various social service providers. Last week alone, 5 homeless individuals were housed. I am extremely thankful to our emergency response team members, Pierre and Lindy, for going out there every single day and engaging our homeless residents, making every attempt to help steer them towards a more productive and safe future by matching them up to any and all available services. Pierre and Lindy are here. Please stand up and let's acknowledge them. Thank you so much. Tonight we have 3 panel members who have a tremendous amount of expertise on the subject of homelessness. My hope is that they can give us all a sense of clarity to our collective concerns. We will hear from Greg Spiegel, Mayor Garcetti's Homelessness Policy Director, Senior Lead Officer Deon Joseph, who has patrolled downtown LA's Skid Row for 17 years, and Shari Weaver from Harbor Interfaith Services in San Pedro. Let's give them a round of applause. The problem of homelessness is complex, and there are many different factors that contribute to the problem. Mental illness, alcoholism, substance abuse and addiction, domestic violence, the high cost of housing. While I don't agree that tiny houses are a solution to our homelessness problem and in fact create a list of entirely new problems, I do credit those individuals for bringing us together tonight so that we can, as a community, as a community, support solutions for diminishing our homeless problem in a more peaceful and civil manner. Now, homelessness is not a San Pedro problem or Wilmington problem or a Los Angeles problem. It's a nationwide problem that will require the cooperation of multiple government entities. The city of Los Angeles cannot solve this issue alone. We need our neighbors to do a better job of pitching in. Long Beach, Rancho Palos Verdes, Torrance, Gardena, they all need to contribute more to solving this problem. The harbor area cannot become the sanctuary for homeless people that are pushed out in other cities. There are 88 cities in this county, and all need to do their part. Our harbor area's history is written by hard-working people who came together as a community to create prosperous, peaceful lives for their families. This community standard has been interrupted. The people who live here come from many obstacles and hardships. They are resilient and smart. Tonight's forum will help us focus our collective resilient energy to how we can work together to elevate the current standards. Before we get into our first panelists, we will be sharing the stories of our local, previously homeless neighbors that have recently been placed in housing and taken off the streets thanks to the efforts of my full-time emergency response team and with the hard work of the LAPD and Harbor Interfaith Services. Before we get into our first testimonial, I do want to acknowledge our Congresswoman Janice Hahn, who just this week toured the Downtown Women's Center with the Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro. Congresswoman, thank you for being here. We also have representatives from Supervisor Don Kanabe's office, State Senator Isidore Hall, and also State Assembly Member Patrick O'Donnell. Our first testimonial is from Howard Lambert, who has been homeless for 10 years and most recently was living in front of the post office here in San Pedro. In the past month, Howard got an apartment in Los Angeles.
Hi, my name is Howard Lambert. I've been homeless for approximately 10 years. The reason I got homeless was I had a job doing the maintenance in the Maryland. It's an apartment building in San Pedro. And when they finally sold the place, the corporate comes in, they buy the office, they say something like that they can't have just an individual person doing the maintenance. They have to get a whole different crew. And I was out in the streets. That was how I got on the streets. Ended up at Anderson Park in a little two-man tent. Zipped up, somebody comes up and I said, yeah, who is it? It's all the shadow. Started beating me down with a pipe, metal pipe for 15 minutes solid. 3 hits and I was out. Emergency rushed me to the hospital. They did an emergency surgery on me. I had a colonoscopy bag attached, internal injuries. I had a broken ankle. I had a collarbone shoulder broken. Just 12 stitches in my head, just beat really bad. Been living in front of the post office, right between Palos Verdes and Beacon, along that park there. It varies. There's some people there that you would rather not have there. Most of the people that I live with in that area, that little community of the homeless, there are quite a few people that would like nothing better than to get off the streets. There's some people that say that they want to, but they really don't want to get off the streets because they don't really want to go any further. Then there's some people that just don't seem like they have the intelligence to get off the streets. They really need some mental help. They need to get somebody out there that's like, somebody that can say, look, you need to be put inside of a mental institute or something like that, because there's people out there that are just too far gone to even look for help. But most people do want to get off the streets. Ended up coming back to Harbor Interfaith, talking to Shari, and Shari is the greatest. She told me that she was going to help me, and I said, well, great, I need to be helped. You're going to help me. This is going to be good. She told me about this voucher, the Section 8 voucher, and from what I've heard, Section 8 vouchers take a long time to get on. You go through GR or something like that. People are on those lists for like years and years and years. But she said that there was a new government program that is funded that is going to get you out the streets, help you out, pretty fast. Kind of hard to believe, but still, 2.5 months, I was in. I got a place in LA, and it's a brand new building. It's the best. It's the greatest. I can't think of it enough. The greatest thing that ever happened is like hitting the lottery when you find out that you got the housing. When I went in and signed the final paperwork, I was ecstatic. I came back and I told Shari I couldn't thank her enough, and I told her that, it might take me a while to get used to staying there, that I might even want to sleep out in the alley a couple nights while I'm there in the beginning, just so I can get the transition, because I've been homeless for 10 years. I mean, me and my girl have been on the streets for a long time. And moving into a place, I still feel like it's kind of like I'm renting a motel or a hotel. Like I got to check out at 11 the following day. But it's mine, and I realize this, but I just don't. It's like I haven't really got the concept yet, because it's fantastic. I mean, it's great. But after it did happen to me, I went out and told everybody that I knew, everybody that I could find that was saying like, what? You got it how long? Because they felt like I did. It was going to take forever. I would tell them, get over there to Harbor Interfaith or go to mental health, one of the two places, and they have, I guess it's a government-granted, program where they're giving these vouchers to people, and sure enough, they're doing it. And a lot of people that I know that were there have gotten vouchers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Howard Lambert's here tonight. Howard, let us recognize you. Where's Howard? Thank you for joining us. With that, I would like to introduce our first panelist. Many of you have seen the video I did last week touring Skid Row with LAPD Senior Lead Officer Deon Joseph, who has patrolled that area the past 17 years. He is the boots on the ground. He has seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and has a first-hand perspective of the needs and challenges of the homeless population. He has single-handedly housed over 150 individuals during his time at Skid Row. Please help me welcome Senior Lead Officer Deon Joseph.
I am truly honored to be here. I was going to go freestyle on you guys, but we'd be up here all day, and I only have 15 minutes to pour 18 years of horror that I've seen in Skid Row. Senior Lead Officer Joseph, been working Skid Row for 18 years now. I love it. I worked it as a patrolman, and then 10 years ago, I was blessed to get this star where I felt I could really do some really hard work at trying to change people's lives and to create an environment that's conducive to change in the lives of the people there, so that the service providers who work hard every day can have a stronger influence over them than the criminal element. That was my mission for the past 10 years, and it's been an honor. What I'm not here to do today is engage in demagoguery against the homeless. I love them. I care about them. But I am here to tell some tough truths. So please don't take it as me kicking the homeless while they're down. I feel like from a truth-based foundation, we can change things. I believe my captain is here, so I have to give a shout out to Captain Orb if you're in here. I want to tell you that homelessness, mental illness, they're not a crime, folks. It's not a crime to be homeless. But the reality is, in many parts of Los Angeles, homelessness plus something else can cause disastrous results. Homelessness plus drug addiction, meth addiction, crack addiction. That's when the homeless end up becoming a police problem. But prior to that, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. All right? Hopefully the truths I tell you can guide you into making sound decisions on what you want to do. All right? What kind of people live in Skid Row? I would say the same kind of people as anywhere else. There are 4 kinds of people in Skid Row, just like anywhere else. Okay? They're good people. They're wonderful people in Skid Row who are getting their lives together, who are using their programs because they lost their jobs or came down on hard times. And it's tough for them. It's tough for them, but they're trying. They're doing the best they can. You have people who I would say are good people who do bad things. These would be your drug addicts. When these individuals are sober, you end up finding out they're highly intelligent, highly capable, and very warm individuals. But when they're going through addiction, they will do whatever it takes to get their fix in the form of robberies, burglaries, break-ins, whatever it takes. But when they're sober, they're wonderful. There's bad people who have redemptive qualities. I feel that when we were able to clean up Skid Row, it inspired gangsters and others to come together and work with us to start 3-on-3 basketball leagues. That actually happened. Funny thing happens when you let the police do their job. The real community takes over and positive things start to happen. They painted murals. We gave them trash cans and brooms and said, go for it. We did the hard work. Take your community back. And I saw gang members doing wonderful things in Skid Row. It worked. Yeah, people can change, right? And lastly, you have predators. In Skid Row, there's a crime syndicate unofficially called the Downtown Gangsters, and they're a mixture of Bloods and Crips who come downtown to prey on the homeless community. They come downtown, nice shoes, clean socks, and they'll put a blanket on and hide in the tent. Or they'll co-opt every block, and they'll force people to sell their drugs, hide their weapons. And here's the thing about gangsters. I'm a drug recognition expert, and I know the objective symptoms of someone being under the influence of drugs. But guess who else knows it very well too? The drug dealer. So when a drug dealer walks by a tent and he sees an individual struggling with addiction with burn marks, lips, bruxism, this is where I'm going to set up shop. That's when problems start. That's when the violence starts against them. That's when they become exploited. That's when it's homeless on homeless crime, loan shark on homeless, drug dealer on homeless, gangsters arguing with each other over territory. That's when these things happen. That's when these things happen. But there's another category that will not be overlooked tonight because it's near and dear to my heart, and that is mental illness. Sadly, in the greatest country in the world, our society's answer to mental illness is to sprinkle pills on people in the name of civil liberties, kick them out in the streets and say, yay, you're free to do what you want to do. But what they don't realize is when you dump them in places like Skid Row, unlike the average person who may have a heart condition, when they run out of their pills, what do? They go to Kaiser, Blue Cross, ACA, whatever, and get the refill. But someone struggling with severe bipolar or schizophrenia, I'm sorry. I'm a little tired. Anyway, someone struggling with these things, when they run out of their pills, sometimes they don't have the wherewithal like you or I to go get a refill. And who's there to medicate them? The Crips and the Bloods. And it leaves them open to being violated in the most inhumane ways possible. As law enforcement, we are dealing with the fallout of our society not doing enough. We can't do it. So the next time you read the paper and there's a controversial incident involving our department, and you get it in your head to say, you know what, these officers need training. Let me tell you something. The Officers Essential Division can teach a class on mental illness. Okay? What we don't have is the support, and this is what they give us to help the mentally ill. That's not their fault, that's not our fault, that's society's fault. I want you to understand that, okay? If you want to know how much I care as a law enforcement officer, myself, and I'm not the only one, there are many others. Here's some of the things I've done. You heard one. Working with service providers inside Skid Row and outside of Skid Row, I helped house 150 people. Now, that's a drop in the bucket, but that was the 150 that wanted help. The other 1,200 knew where to go, but they didn't come because they weren't ready. You need to let us help make them ready. All right? Yeah. I also stopped 735 people from getting kicked out of their homes and thrown into the streets. With the blessing of my leadership, wonderful leaders like Commander Smith, Captain Wakefield, and other great leaders, they said, go for it, Joseph. And I spoke on their behalf, and I stopped SRO from closing down. That was one of the most wonderful things in my career. So that should let you know right there that I am not, and my officers are not against the homeless. But until housing comes to fruition, until those things come into play, we should be allowed to do our job to keep them safe. And that's my opinion. All right? So lastly, what do I think, before I go to my slideshow, what do I think needs to be done? Because I only have 15 minutes. Well, I have two solutions. The first is decentralize. Skid Row should no longer be the mecca of all things homeless. I know you guys have a problem. We got a problem. For years, people would take their homeless and shove them into Skid Row because Skid Row was created by two ideologies, and I'm going to get right to the slide. And I'm not talking about your political when I say left or right. We're just showing the polar opposites. On one side of the aisle, you had the NIMBYs, people who believed in NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Let's take our homeless and mentally ill, empty our jails, and send them down to Skid Row because they have quote-unquote services there, which caused Skid Row to become completely overrun, where the missions and service providers couldn't handle it. And then on the other side, you had the super left who believed that because someone's homeless, disenfranchised, poor, or whatever, that we as law enforcement should just take our hands up and let them do whatever they want to do, because after all, that's all they have. But let me tell you what those two sides created. One created a concentration camp without walls. The other put those people in danger. We have to come to the middle, folks. Put down our politics and work together. All right, let me get off my soapbox and get to the slide. I only have 15 minutes. So let's talk about one of the big issues you all are having right now. Tiny houses. One of the big issues that you're facing right now are the tiny houses, okay? Noble idea. In Skid Row, there have been many noble ideas. But in Skid Row, whenever you try to do something wonderful in an area that's laced with criminality, the criminal element will quickly take it over and ruin it. They put in a park, San Julian Park, almost 30 years ago. It said, this is for the homeless. The downtown gangsters co-opted it, and now they use it as a command post to divvy up drugs and poison people in Skid Row and make the job of the service providers hard. They put in 27 porta potties, and our department said, hey, that's not really a good idea. Oh, well, you're the big bad LAPD, right? They brought them anyway. The next day, they were co-opted by gangsters, and the gang members were charging people $1 to $5 to use the porta potty for what they were designed for, unless you were using their prostitutes or their drugs. And you can imagine towards the end of the month, when most people smoked up their GR checks or whatever, you would find more fecal matter and urine outside of the porta potty than inside of the porta potty. Good idea, bad area, wrong idea. All right? Tiny houses, what do I think of them? I think it's a noble idea. But if the area we're talking about placing them in has gangs, drugs, in 6 months, you're going to wish you hadn't. Because once again, it's not about homelessness per se. It's not about homelessness. It's homelessness plus. Like I said, those gangsters, they're smart. All it takes is one or two. Hey, that's a drug addict. And they're going to set up shop, and it could be bad. I always say this, I hope I'm wrong. I always hope I'm wrong, but usually I'm not. Okay. What's the difference between a tiny house and a Coleman tent? Not a darn thing. Next slide. Drug dealing will still be drug dealing. Prostitution will still be prostitution. Rape will still be rape. And overdosing will be overdosing. As a matter of fact, by show of hands, how many people are against human trafficking? Everybody's hand better be up. How many people are against people using drugs near drug programs? Okay? All right. How many people are against people overdosing and dying? If you're against that, you have to be against that. Because in most cases, and I know people try to separate the two, you can't separate poor quality of life. In some areas, not all. I don't want to typecast all areas because it may work in some places. But you can't separate poor quality of life from violent crime. The Safer Cities Initiative proved that. I always tell people the Safer Cities Initiative didn't fail. It was sabotaged. It didn't fail. We saved lives. We saved lives. Clean, healthy streets, creating an environment where people can benefit from the programs. It worked. Next slide. This is what we're dealing with in Skid Row right now. Unfortunately, because of a lawsuit, we've kind of had to back off. And with no clear direction on what we can or can't do, basically we've been told, hey, warn them, offer them services, which we've been doing. We were doing that. And that happened. A whole entire block covered in tents. Entire sidewalks blocked where people in wheelchairs had to go around these tents. Human beings had to walk in the street like animals. And in that green tent right there is a drug dealer, an East Coast Crip. The gangsters co-opted some of the tents. And the ones that weren't co-opted by gangsters, once again, the people were intimidated and they were being forced to hold, store, engage in other criminal activity. It's going to happen. You can't avoid it. Next slide. What we were finding is during the from 2006 to 2010, needles, used condoms, all those things were beginning to disappear. It was fantastic. After the Levin ruling, that is a bucket full of needles that I collected from the sidewalk. Used needles that people were picking up. And even though there was a needle exchange program on 4th and Town, they still picked them up, put Clorox bleach in it, and injected themselves. I watch people get HIV in Skid Row every day. The next photo is a rat farm a lady was growing in a shopping cart. Those are 2 rats. They had little babies everywhere, rat droppings everywhere. It was horrible. And I tried to house her. I actually got her housing. All she had to do was walk in. But because drugs kept her anchored to the sidewalk, she never walked in, and she stayed right there. She was 76 years old. The last photo right there is blood. like I said, I didn't want to bring the gory stuff, but that's about as gory as I'm going to get for you. A man came out of his tent and was hit in the head with a metal pipe, a transgender. And while he bled on the sidewalk, his attacker stood around and laughed at him, waited for her to stick her head out, and bashed her head in. I fought like an animal to get that case filed. Criminals still walking the streets. It's really hard for us right now. I'm not going to lie to you. Next, another picture. That's a clear example. That wall right there was painted. That's a different painting. But prior to that, when I had those streets clean, when my 50 officers had those streets clean, the community painted a mural that said, "We want clean, safe, healthy streets." And that got replaced by this. Those streets are not clean and safe or healthy anymore. It's unfortunate. And just across the street is the VOA, a wonderful organization. Wonderful organization. And when I go talk to my friend, Miss Cheatham, I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, I can't help you with a lot of this." She tells me horror stories every night about how the elderly and the handicapped are being brutalized. Next. This is 5th and San Julian Park. Now, if you read the paper, and I'm not knocking any news organization, they got to do their job. If you read the paper, this is what the homeless want. In these tents, there was human trafficking, prostitution, drug sales. There was a woman who would bring her 1-month-old baby down here to sell drugs out of her tent. Okay? I got a letter from 200 people. And guess where they were from? They weren't from the lofts. They weren't from the artist district. Some of those people on that list were on the street and said, "Joseph, we want this to stop." 200 people from Skid Row who lived in low-income supportive services or even lived in the street says, "Joseph, help us." And I took that letter and I gave it to everybody I could find. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I gave it to everybody I could find, who could help. Unfortunately, it didn't work. And we're stuck with this. Next. Oh, this is an interesting one. This man right here, right after the Levon injunction, one man's trash is his treasure. We couldn't touch it. He collected all of that garbage right there. Once again, he's another individual who on 4 occasions, I got him housing. Once again, working with my friends from SRO and other places, all he had to do was walk in. But he couldn't leave because all his stuff was right here. When we finally got him to agree to remove half of his stuff, we found dead animals, human feces, needles, evidence of drug sales. We found everything. I am, and I'm proud of that, sir. And I love you. All right. Next slide. Now, this one, they're going to play it real quick. You can go ahead and play it. This is September 16th, 2011, right after a few months after the Levon injunction. Watch what San Julian was completely clean prior to this, but look at this. Now, everybody you see in this video isn't homeless. I'm going to point out the ones who aren't. You can see that guy smoking a crack pipe. The girl that was sitting there, she's a gangster. The guy in the red stripes, a gangster. He's going to keep moving. The guy with the white hat, that's a gangster. I'm not saying this because they're black. I'm saying this because I know him. The guy in the white hood, gangster. Girl right there, her name's Nunu. Yes, I know her name. Her name is Nunu. She was on probation for drug sales, and she sits there in that chair and supervises the drug operation. That's what I call, it's okay, folks. It's okay. You can call me whatever you want to. It's okay. This is what I call a criminal orgy. And I'll never back down from that statement. Next slide. I've actually arrested, hold on, that's an honest question. I've arrested 5 of those guys. The problem is, it's a non-serious crime now. Hold on. I can't think of anything more serious than selling crack cocaine near a drug program. I can't think of anything more serious because it spurns the violence. Can't separate the two. These are 3 downtown gangsters. They're Bloods. You check the uniformity, red shirt, red shoes, shoestrings. This is on the east side of San Pedro. East side of San Pedro, there's tents lined up and these guys co-opted it. Go to the next video. I'm in the red and we'll show that and I'm going to stop. That's racist, sir. That's wrong.
Under the guise of homelessness.
That's wrong.
Finish.
Okay, right here, that's heroin, methamphetamines. There's a handgun and a bunch of swords that were found in one of those guys'
You said
tents.
this is 6th of San Pedro?
6th of San Pedro. I'm in 100% agreement. Because there's no place for the people to go with the 9 o'clock to 6, letting them sleep, I get it. But during the day, we have to be allowed to stop this. We have to be allowed to stop it. So, I've overstepped my time. Forgive me, I'm passionate about this, and I forgive you. And God bless you guys. Take care.
Look at him, Joseph. Thank you. Thank you, Officer Joseph. If we learn one thing from Senior Lead Officer Joseph, is as a community we need to continue to show mercy for those who are in need and those living on the streets, but at the same time do everything we can in our power, even if it takes the time needed to get these individuals the help that they deserve. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our second testimonial is from an individual whose name is Richard Castle, a veteran who was placed in housing just over a month ago.
My name is Richard Castle. I'm from San Pedro, California. I've been homeless since I was 19. I was out in front of the post office for almost a year. And that changed when they had a services fair at the Beacon House kitchen. Shari Weaver came up and asked me if I was a veteran. I said, well, yes, I am. They said, you're in luck. There's a bunch of funds and opportunities that became available for you. And so I took it. Now I'm off the street. Got a one-bedroom apartment. Little by little, I'm working my way back up into being a productive member of society again. It seems like I have to pinch myself at times, like it's almost too good to be true. But it's one step at a time. I'd much rather have the empty apartment and the one chair than to be back on the streets and be homeless. I would tell my neighbors at the post office that not to give up, have faith, and keep looking forward to bettering yourself. You just can't be like that on the streets forever. Today I look forward to having electricity in my apartment, being able to lock my belongings behind the door, which I don't have much right now, but it's still a good feeling to know that when I come back they're going to be there. Today I kind of have something to live for other than just to roam around and occupy space somewhere, that someone doesn't want you to be. It feels good not being on the street, having people drive by and take pictures at you and stare. I want to go back to school and finish getting my Class A license and be a truck driver. Not bad, you make $18 to $30 here in the harbor driving containers back and forth. So I figure that's about one of my best options.
We invited Richard Castle to join us. Please give him a round of applause. Richard Castle is here tonight. Thank you. And for those that you remember, Antes, the cleanup of the encampments, Richard was in one of those encampments and was offered shelter that same day, and he took it. For our next speaker, prior to joining Mayor Garcetti's office in October of 2014 as the mayor's homelessness policy director, our next speaker, Greg Spiegel, was a director of public policy and communications at the Inner City Law Center, advancing policies that improve the quality of affordable housing and prevent to end homelessness. Prior to that, Greg was the housing attorney at the Western Center on Law and Poverty, where he helped draft and implement state and local reforms to improve code enforcement of slum housing, particularly to prevent environmental health hazards like lead poisoning. He also co-founded the Healthy Homes Collaborative. Help me welcome Greg Spiegel.
How's this? Is this working? Yeah, all right. Hi, it's a real privilege to be here. I've worked on housing and homelessness issues for 18 years. This is my first government job, the first time I've worked for an elected official. This hasn't happened before. 18 years, there's been more homeless than we have now, but there hasn't been this kind of attention of wanting to talk about solutions. And I think we have a rare moment here. Next slide, please. So we have a similar foundation that we're talking from. This is trends in homeless counts from 2005 to 2015. And there's a chart that got cut off here about the numbers, but I guess it's enough to say that 10 years ago we had much higher homelessness than we do now, but it was trending steadily down until the Great Recession, and then that trend stopped. And it's starting to creep back up a little bit, as you can see. And the top line is the whole LA continuum of care, which includes most cities in the county. The next line is chronically homeless people. The next line, that kind of orange line, is veterans. And the last line, yellow, is Council District 15's numbers. And so right now, I think Council District 15 has, in the last homeless count, which was January 2015, was 1,544 people. That's about 300 more than 2 years ago, but it's about half of what it was in 2005. So it's increasing relatively to a couple years ago, but from 10 years ago, we're not these numbers yet. But I think the opportunity is we really have a lot of attention on it, and so let's talk about solutions. Okay, next slide. I think we all know why people become, or this is who are homeless people. 2 in 3 in the city of LA are unsheltered. These are all city of LA numbers. 1 in 3 mental illness. 1 in 5 have a physical disability. You can read the numbers, but 1 in 5 are veterans. 1 in 4 are chronically homeless. 1 in 4 have drug addiction or alcohol abuse. And often there's crossover between these things as well. So next slide, please. Where do LA County's homeless people come from? As part of this job, I go to all places around the city. And in every place I go to, when I'm in Venice, I hear about how everybody comes from downtown to Venice. And when I'm in Mount Washington, I hear how they come from downtown to Mount Washington. And when I'm in downtown, I hear about how everybody comes from everywhere else and comes to downtown. So this is a little bit of to look at data and what does it tell us. So this is from the homeless count in January 2015, this data, so it's very recent. 93% of our homeless people have been in the LA County for more than 1 year. 77% for more than 10 years. This overwhelmingly is a local problem. These are our people. There is some immigration, but it's not the main cause of the problem. These are LA people who are becoming homeless. And in fact, those numbers of locality are higher than they are for the general population. Our homeless people are more local than the general population are. Okay, next please. All right, why are people become homeless? We've had a lot of talk about that, so in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. I think you guys know. We've heard people explain that. Solutions, we've heard some talk about this. So Mayor Garcetti, I took this job because Mayor Garcetti said we need to stop managing homelessness and start ending it. And I think for too long, we've used leaf blowers to move homeless people from one community to another community, and then their leaf blower blows them back, and so we're just kind of moving people around in an incredibly costly, ineffective way. What we know from the last 5 years of work of people like Shari, who we've heard from some of her clients, is the solution is housing, permanent housing with supportive services. That's what ends homelessness. And shelter is a really important part of that, but that's an interim solution on the road to permanent housing. And really, what we want to get is people into permanent housing as soon as possible. We heard some testimony about people coming right off the street and into housing. That's called housing first. We don't wait. For many years, we had what we called a continuum, where people had to go by certain checkpoints in order to move towards housing. You kind of had to earn it. You had to get off your meds, you had to get off drugs, you had to go into programs. And what we found is that worked for some people, higher functioning people who didn't have as big of barriers, but for the people with the big barriers, they could not get through that. So we were waiting for them to be ready for housing. They never were. Okay, it's very hard to quit drugs, as you all know, on the street. It's very hard to treat mental illness on the street. So what has worked and what across the country data shows is housing first. Get people into housing as soon as possible. And once there, have the services that they need to kind of be able to maintain housing. So it's two things. It's get into housing as soon as possible. It's get into housing as soon as possible with the services so they can retain housing. Because if they're not retaining housing, it doesn't really matter. Housing first, practice with supportive services, 88% stay permanently housed. That by many times is more effective than any other intervention we have. So we know it works from the last 5-10 years of experimenting on this. And it's cheaper. It's cheaper to house people with supportive services than to leave them on the street where they get picked up by an ambulance and go to an emergency room. So together, it's the right thing and it's cheaper, so let's come together and figure out how to do it. Okay, so probably something you've heard about, permanent supportive housing. 3 words, permanent, meaning this is not shelter, this is not in at 6 and out at 6, this is not transitional housing where you're in for 6 months to 2 years and then you have to transition again. It's permanent. You have a lease. You're a tenant as long as you can keep the lease. There's a rental subsidy that helps pay for your rent, usually a federal subsidy, but we know there aren't enough of those, so we're going to need to find more. And there's services in the building. This is a permanent supportive housing building called the Abbey on Skid Row on San Pedro and 6th. It's like a beautiful building. You walk in. I would live there. It's gorgeous. And the services, interestingly, are voluntary. When they're forced, that becomes a barrier from people getting into housing. People move in. They start to stabilize. They start to use the services. They start to turn their life around. That's the model that works. From data, from study, we know that model works. Okay, next slide. What it illustrates is that for the last 3 years especially, we've been housing lots of people. Over 10,000 of chronically homeless people have been permanently housed in the last 3 years, which is great. But even still, the numbers keep going up, right? So next slide, please. Okay. So how are we housing people? How is Shari at Harbor Interfaith housing people? She's part of the coordinated entry system. And system is important because for years we have not had a system. What we had is individual silos of nonprofits and government agencies, all well-intended, all with really good programs that were in their own silos and weren't connected. I was part of that system. Somebody would come to us and we can help you with 2 things, but we can't help you with your mental illness, we can't get you housing. I might know somebody out there who could help you, but good luck to you. Call this guy, he might be able to help you. But it was on the consumer, the homeless person, to go find from each individual agency all the services and housing they need. They had to cobble it together themselves. That's not a system, and it's no wonder we've ended up with so many people on the street. Coordinated entry system is the chance to change that, and this is something that's already implemented but has not been brought to scale. It's throughout LA County, but with this much funding, and it needs this much funding. And here's the pieces of it. There's stick figures here that represent homeless people. What we want is there's outreach and engagement that happens initially, to go out, to meet the people, to talk to them. And it's not one time, do one services? No? Oh, well, forget it then. It's ongoing, consistent outreach that we need. And this is going to cost money to do this. Our resources for outreach are too thin. So we need ongoing, consistent engagement and outreach so people get that you mean it. They've heard it all before. Shari's bringing, you heard the skepticism when Shari comes to them and say, we have housing, like, oh yeah, I've heard that before, or whatever. And now we're really bringing it, but we need to bring it to scale. So first, outreach engagement. And one of the goals of that is to take an assessment to know who the person is, their ID, their health information, their housing needs, their mental health issues, their substance abuse issues, as well as their eligibility profile. We take that information and put it into a database. And that database now has about 15,000 people in it. And what we do is prioritize the sickest on the street and match them with the housing and services at the end of the arrow there. But as they're going into the system, we assess them, and the goal is to get them into interim housing, shelter, 24-hour shelter, not 12 hours in and out, 24-hour shelter so we know where they are, where case managers can get with them and get them IDs. Many have lost their IDs. We have to get IDs for them, determine their eligibility, get their documentation together, so we connect them at the end with the housing subsidies and the services, which is really our goal. Okay? This is a system, it is working, but it is working this much. We need it to work this much. What we need are resources. So, coordinated entry system isn't just outreach, it isn't just the database, it's this whole system. And this is the most important element. Housing subsidies with supportive services that allow people to get into housing and keep the housing. If they're dropping out, it doesn't do us any good. But doing this and investing this money saves us money. It makes our streets safer, it makes our streets cleaner, it brings better lives. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I want to talk specifically about veterans. I want to make very clear here that the mayor is unconditionally committed to ending veterans' homelessness, no matter what the press misreport. That's why I took this job. And since January 1st, 2014, we've housed over 4,000 homeless veterans. And when I say we, I'm not housing anybody, but it's like people like Shari. The mayor is pulling down the housing subsidies and resources unparalleled in the country. And people like Shari are putting people into housing. So that is great, but we've still got a long way to go. I'm going to cut through the applause lines a bit because I'm running out of time. So we still have 2,600 that we expect that aren't homeless right now, but we expect over the course of this year, up until December 31st, we'll need housing. We'll need our help housing them. Otherwise, they'll be homeless. And at our current level of housing, we're not going to reach all of them on the current pace. We're going to be 1,500 short, so we're doing everything we can right now to innovate and with a sense of urgency to move that timeline, to jam more people in. There's lots of ideas that we're doing, and if you want to join in that effort, I'd be glad to help. I'm glad to have your help, but we're going to keep moving. Next slide, please. Okay, so 4,421 homeless veterans in the last 18 months have been housed. That's more, almost twice as many as the homeless count in January 2013 and January 2015. Yet, the homeless count numbers have remained constant. What is happening? How can we house all these people and the count on the street remains constant? It's inflow. 4 to 5 veterans every day in the city of Los Angeles are becoming homeless. Same with chronically homeless people. We've housed over 10,000 in the last 3 years in the county, yet the numbers are going up. Next slide, please. All right, so where do we need to go? So there's 3 pillars to this, and this is what the mayor is working on with partners at the city council, like Councilmember Joe Buscaino, and partners at the county level. We want to work together. This is a big job to coordinate all this together. We're going to need all of you. We need the private sector. We need philanthropy, all of us working together to do this. So in the mayor's vision, there's 3 big pieces of this. The first pillar is we need to house the people who are currently homeless on the street. And that's the coordinated entry system that we talk about. And that's about more supportive services, more housing resources that we need to invest in it. So that's a resource investment up front, which will save us resources on the back end and make a lot of people better off. Second pillar is it's not enough to house people who are homeless. We have to prevent people from coming in and becoming homeless too. So that is a few things. One, we need to increase incomes. And so the minimum wage increase is really a homelessness prevention effort. Wages need to increase to be able to pay for housing. Our housing is unaffordable. So no matter what your strategy, we need to have a strategy for increasing incomes because our housing is the least affordable in the country. That's not controversial. That's not a question. So we need strategies to do that. The other thing is we're going to need more affordable housing. We have to preserve what we have, and we're going to have to increase production. Otherwise, we're going to be back here every year with more and more homeless people. We have to present the inflow. Okay? There's a lot of people becoming homeless every single day. And then we need better transitions from institutions like jails, hospitals, foster care, where people are being transitioned into homelessness. We need those institutions 6 months before they're coming out to really work with them. We need institutions on the outside to catch them before they have no alternatives. And then third, we need a vision for the street that balances health and safety with rights and needs. As Officer Joseph was saying, we swung back and forth between two extremes of we're going to take everything and arrest to we're going to do nothing. We need that middle ground, and so I think Officer Joseph is right on that, where we have to keep the streets clean, we have to take the tents down during the day, but all of this needs to be an opportunity. Every government contact should be an opportunity to get people into the coordinated entry system and into housing and off the street. So right now, all the city and county governments, they're all doing isolated different things, very much siloed. And so what we're working on right now is how to make every touch a homelessness outreach touch that gets people into the system and into housing. So we're planning on doing a much better job of that. So those are those three pieces. And then the resources that we're going to need staffing of a lot more people like Shari, countywide. We're going to need a lot more interim housing resources, shelters that do different things, that are open 24 hours. And we need those other resources. And we also need more permanent housing. We're fooling ourselves. If we don't crack the permanent housing nut, it's not going to do anything. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg Spiegel. Before I introduce and cue up our next video, I want to introduce a colleague of mine. We sit together on the National League of Cities. He's a member of the Cleveland City Council, Councilmember Matt Zone, who in his city, homelessness is an issue is also in Cleveland. A 10-year plan to build 1,000 permanent supporting housing units. They are at 800 units today and are really inching closer to that 1,000 mark of housing. So Councilmember Matt Zone, thank you so much for joining us. Our next video testimonial is from Denise Vigil. You know Denise. She's a homeless woman living near the post office.
Hi, my name is Denise Vigil. I've been homeless for 3.5 years, and it's been really hard, but thank God I got a voucher. I'm in the process of getting a house, and one day I was walking, pushing my shopping cart, and I seen Gail at San Pedro Mental Health, and she just asked me if I wanted to come to a class, and it was Housing 101, and I went to the class, and been applying ever since, and I finally got it. While I've been homeless, I've lived on 8th and Palos Verdes, just stayed around the post office area. I sleep across the street from the post office, just in front of a clinic. It's closed up, I just sleep in front of there. I had a tent, but it got stolen, so I just put up like a sheet and lay in a sleeping bag. It's really hectic right now. There's a lot more people there, and it's kind of getting out of hand. Some people, you know, they do their own thing and there's nothing you can do about it, you know? I mean, you tell them that, you know, they're messing up for everybody else, but they don't listen, so, yeah. There's probably about maybe 30 people around there, and I would say half of them want a home, and the other half, I don't know why they don't want a home or to get help. They just don't. I think they're more comfortable on the streets, and I don't really understand that, but you know, some of us do want to get help, and so I'm one of those people. Harbor Interfaith and San Pedro Mental Health have been very, very helpful. I thought that it was just never going to end. You know, you get discouraged. A lot of people have opinions that hurt. Sorry. Even though I have a voucher and I'm very hopeful to find a place, I'm still sleeping outside. Until then, you know, it's a process.
Ladies and gentlemen, just yesterday I saw Denise in front of my municipal building. I tracked her down. I go, Denise, any word, any news? She goes, I'm walking to Harbor Interfaith right now. I said, Denise, get in my car. I'm taking you to Harbor Interfaith. We drove together and was informed that Denise was given an apartment. Denise Vigil is here tonight. Give her a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Our next speaker, Shari Weaver, is a regional coordinator, SPA 8 coordinated entry system, and has assisted thousands of homeless individuals with transitional and permanent supportive housing. She helped Richard, Howard, and Denise, and she will help many more in the future. I know very well, because as a senior lead officer patrolling the streets of San Pedro, I partnered with her for many, many times and helped house a number of individuals, right, Shari? Help me welcome Shari Weaver from Harbor Interfaith.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. Welcome, San Pedro. Thank you for coming out tonight. I just want to tell you about myself a little bit. I'm from Harbor Interfaith. I've worked there now for the past 14 years. And I just really want to say that this is pretty awesome tonight. I know the testimonials mentioned my name quite a few times, but as the regional coordinator for Coordinated Entry System, it takes a team, and my team helped make those possible. My responsibility is to oversee Service Planning Area 8, so I'm actually responsible for the coordinated and collaborative efforts to reach out to our chronically homeless population, which is anybody that's been homeless for over a year or has had 4 or more episodes in the past 3 years and has a disabling condition. Our job is to make sure that we get them permanently housed. As you can see, our homeless numbers up here. Every 2 years we do a regional homeless count. 41,000 people on any given night are homeless out in the streets of LA County. In San Pedro alone, we have 376. That's a 39% increase from 2013. This is not unique just to this community. There's a 12% increase across LA County. We need to do some things and really make some plans and move forward with getting those numbers down. I oversee an area from Inglewood all the way down to Long Beach, from the 405 freeway that runs to the coast. And we also include Santa Catalina Island. This is not easy work, but it is work that's possible, and we've proven it time and time again. Coordinated Entry System, we were funded by United Way and the Home for Good Funders Collaborative. We started in July 2014, and in our first year, we were able to house 196 people in permanent housing. I know when this system was brought to my attention, I quite honestly had to ask myself, what have I gotten myself into? How am I going to take people that have either past or present substance abuse issues, that have a current mental health issue, that have these complex health conditions, and get them directly from the streets and into permanent housing? But with our team, and just doing the most essential things like having those meaningful conversations, taking them to the DMV, transporting back and forth to the housing authority, and having those conversations with, can we just try this? We've gotten 196 people housed. Harbor Interfaith is not only the lead organization for the South Bay for the Coordinated Entry System, we are also the lead organization for the Homeless Family Solution System. And in our first year with that, we were able to house 110 families. Housing is our business, and it is something that I can personally say I am very, very passionate about. I'm a resident of San Pedro. I've lived in San Pedro for 27 years, and there is something really, really magical about this community, and that's why I'm here. I know I shared the other night at the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council, one of many council meetings that I go to. I'm part of the San Pedro Homeless Task Force. I'm also part of the South Bay Coalition to End Homelessness. And I do believe that we can end homelessness. One thing that I know that I have a dream about, and I don't think it's going to be just a dream, is that the children that are being born right now will either not have to experience homelessness or see homelessness in their communities. For the 3 people that we saw for the testimonials, and you guys almost once again made me cry, I am very proud that you gave this a try. And I'm very proud to be part of watching you succeed. And I know that they're going to be out there spreading by word of mouth how they got to where they're at. This is how this has evolved. Harbor Interfaith has always taken a large amount of pride in doing this really hard work, but we don't do it alone. I work with system partners such as the Veterans Administration, the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Health Services, and numerous homeless providers throughout the South Bay. We are collaborative, we are collective, we don't always necessarily agree, as some of us in this community do, but we find that middle ground, we work together, and we get the job done. It's really been an experience for me to be to a lot of these neighborhood council meetings. I really do need to stay off of Facebook. I woke up with it in the morning just to see what is going on in San Pedro and how are we feeling about the homeless issue. Then I would also close my evening at night and say, have they calmed down yet? Let's see if we can talk. I know your guys' hearts are in the right place. You would not be here tonight if you did not believe that somehow or another we could come together to a resolution to address our homeless. I've even had the experience most recently going past the Jack in the Box on 6th and Gaffey, out of the corner of my eye, getting more than what I wanted to look for. I got the full Monty on the way to Happy Diner. That is not how I wanted to start my morning. But I can tell you this, we will be out there. Many times people say that they refuse services. I believe that what they are is reluctant to services. And I am one stubborn woman. I will go out time and time again. And as Joe knows, because we worked together with one client that was out on the street for almost 8 years, but after 8 years, she is now successfully housed in Lancaster. She is reunited with her family. She has the life of her grandchildren back, and that's because nobody gave up. Our homelessness is not something that we can police or power wash away. We really need our police who I work with. I know Officer Lopez, I know Officer Rubright. Junior, I see you over there. You can't hide very well. And I thank you for your partnership too. But I would really rather see them stop the people that are breaking into our homes, that are writing on our walls. And if nothing else, maybe some of the part of addiction can be solved by taking away the dope dealers. I've got my own fan club tonight. I didn't know this. I just want to say this in closing. This is a community that I know is very tight-knit. We are a group that has always and will always, regardless if we don't see eye to eye and we agree to disagree, that will come together. Some of the things that I have going on right now, I have housing vouchers that are coming down to this area. My biggest challenge right now is I can't find a property owner with a studio or one bedroom that is willing to take these vouchers and get our people off the streets. If you're a property owner, if you're a realtor, if you just know a friend, call me. Let me know. I need these units and I can reduce the problem. The other thing I'd like to share is that I have one volunteer right now from the community who said, what can I do to make a difference? And she's taken on 2 projects. And those 2 projects were individuals that needed to be navigated through the system. I want to replicate that and boost my manpower on the team that I have. If you want to and if you're interested, you can volunteer with Harbor Interfaith. I will train you to do what we do. I need people to take people to the DMV. One of those nice little trips to downtown LA to the Housing Authority that sometimes takes my staff offline for 4 to 5 hours. These are ways that you can help. This is going to take finances. This is going to take political will. This is going to take our faith community. These are going to take our business owners, for all of us to stand united, and we can do this. What I really want to say thank you tonight, too, is all those calls that I got today, because I was a nervous wreck coming up here. I am not a public speaker. I am more what I consider a blue-collar homeless provider. I will roll my sleeves up. I will go under the bridges. I will have those conversations. And I will work beside anybody that has the same passion that I do, because I know that there are lives out there that do have meaning. We do not want to make them comfortable in our community to continue to live on our streets. However, once they do become a member of our community, we do want to welcome them here. I know all the not in my backyard that has gone on for so much time, and how San Pedro has done their fair share of heavy lifting. And I really just want you to hold on to that thought for a minute. We do have many resources in this community. We have so many drug treatment programs. We have so many sober livings. And we have Harbor Interfaith. I just want to say this to you. If you can think about driving down the street, and if you can identify those sober livings and tell me that they're making a negative impact and not a positive impact, we need more. If you look at organizations like Harbor Interfaith, and what we need is more permanent supportive housing, we don't have it. We're up to the task. We can do the job. We need more permanent supportive housing. We need more resources, and we need the wraparound service to ensure that not only people are getting into housing, but they're staying in housing. Last year alone, we had a 94% retention rate. I also want to make mention to and thank my partners at Department of Mental Health. They probably have more frequent flyer miles with me in conversations, but together we're getting this done. And to all my veteran service providers, man, you guys are warriors. We're out there, we're getting our veterans off the street. I've got 3 veterans right now that have a housing voucher. 2 that I affectionately call the ZZ Top Brothers. Little beard growth from the Vietnam era. But they were found under Channel and Gaffey. And right now, I would love to see this 67-year-old and the 68-year-old get off the streets and get into housing. I will be at more neighborhood council meetings. I will be at every task force meeting. I think it's extremely important for me as a homeless provider to keep the pulse of this community. But what we need to do is stop being splinter groups, come together, sit down, find a solution, and move it forward. And thank you for all the yellow t-shirts tonight. I finally officially got mine. Saving San Pedro. This is a great community, and we can continue to be a great community. And I just really want to thank you for giving my time up here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shari. Shari has literally helped entire lifetimes for some. Our next video testimonial is from Gina Gunman, who is a San Pedro native who Shari helped nearly a decade ago.
My name is Gina. I am a born and raised San Pedro girl. At the age of 25, I found myself homeless for the second time, actually. I was married, I had 3 kids, and I was married to a crack addict who had put my life in danger. So I finally decided I couldn't take it anymore, and I don't have family to take care of me. I was by myself on my own, and I caught the next Amtrak from Denver back to San Pedro, and I was on the street. I sought help, and it took me about a month to find the Harbor Interfaith shelter and get accepted into their program. During the time that I was on the street, it was a very hard and depressing moment. You know, you have your 3 children with you. You feel like a complete failure. You know, there was times where I was suicidal and I wanted to start taking pills to numb the pain. Being amongst other homeless people, you know, there's this stigma that they're all bums and creeps, and so you're very apprehensive to be around those people. But being in that situation myself, I learned that that's not always true, because I was not the case. When I finally got into the Harbor Interfaith Shelter, they helped me out with everything. They helped me get on welfare. They helped me find a job, go to school. I went through their program the way you're supposed to go through it, and they gave me housing. And 9 years later, I am stable in my same apartment that I got when I left the shelter. My kids are fine. They go to school. They're stable children now. There is help, most definitely. There are many, many resources out there. There's the help that you need. You just have to push through it. I had to walk, take the bus with a double stroller and 3 kids. But I made it, I did it, and there's hope. There are plenty of shelters, not even just in San Pedro. There are plenty of shelters all over the Los Angeles County. The bottom line is that there is help. There is absolutely help, and you have to want it, and it's easy to access. It's easy to access. There's no reason that you should be on the street, because there is help. There's plenty of help.
Thank you for that, Gina. Now I would like to invite our panel back onto the stage for the question and answer period of the forum. Joining Officer Deon Joseph, Greg Spiegel, and Shari Weaver are Capri Maddox, Special Assistant to the City Attorney Mike Feur's office, and LAPD Harbor Division Captain Catherine Meek. Capri is instrumental in the work the City Attorney's Office has done in finding solutions to the homelessness crisis in the city. She has been a part of the city family for 20 years. Her and I worked together with the Neighborhood Prosecutor Program. She started the housing, she's been a part of the, starting with the housing department. Capri is the immediate past president of the LA Board of Public Works. Captain Meek joined the LAPD in 1986 and has worked in just about every department. She is a graduate of the University of Southern California and holds a bachelor's degree in political science. She is also a graduate of the Sherman Block Supervisory Leadership Institute, the FBI National Academy, and the Senior Management Institute for Police. The questions being presented to our panel right now have been collected through Facebook from many of you here tonight. All of you know the conversations on Facebook have been lively and sometimes divisive in the past 2 weeks. We hope that the answers presented here tonight will be of value to you. With that, our first question will go to Ms. Capri Maddox. Thank you, Cap. Are tiny homes legal?
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for having this forum. Tiny houses, as we know them, are not legal. Those are the sheds that are used to place humans in. They are not habitable. We have building and safety codes. They are not up to code at all, and they should not house people. They're similar to what people use to house dogs in. I mean, when you think about what you house dogs in, it's just a bigger version of a doghouse, realistically.
Thank you.
As it relates to whether or not they're legal, building and safety has codes, and they have them for reasons. Fire prevention, you need plumbing, you need safety. We don't know how safe these structures can hold people. And in addition to that, we just don't think they're humane and they're not habitable.
Thank you.
So that's a basic answer to that question. And they're not legal anywhere. I think that was another question. If people can't live in them, they can't live in them on the streets, the parkways, or in someone's backyard. So they're not legal anywhere.
Thank you. Another question for Officer Joseph. A Facebook question came up. Why can't we just find a place for them, homeless, to be able to sleep?
That's a good question, and in Skid Row, there were 2 locations where that was actually tried. One, I actually supported it. 409 East 6th Street is a warehouse that a wonderful pastor took over, and with my help and influence, he was able to take it over and bring people in off the streets to watch TV, rest their feet, and he was planning on putting a shelter inside on the higher floors. Unfortunately, it was co-opted pretty quickly. In about 6 months, we saw more criminals going inside and out, in and out of the facilities. And then there was another one that I didn't support that was taken over by a drug lord. He and his father took over 437 San Julian. It used to be a storefront church. Took it over. He said he was there to provide services, get the homeless off the street. He ended up exploiting them. Women would go in there, and they would close the gate behind the women and force them to have sex and film porn. They would also tase individuals, sell drugs, and do all kind of horrible things. We finally ended up catching his father, and he got slapped on the wrist and got probation, and they opened up another facility 1 block over. So it's just a bad idea. Yeah.
Thank you. Captain Meeks, why does the Los Angeles Police Department not appear to be putting enough resources into combating homelessness and getting them help or arresting the homeless that are breaking the law?
Well, I'm sorry if it appears that way. My obligation is to all of you in this room, not just to the homeless. We have an obligation to respond to calls for service. I have a responsibility to ensure that we're responding to crimes in progress and all the other things that the police department is mandated to do. Having said that, we do recognize that the homeless are victimized and are the suspects as well. So I have to balance that. I have to make sure that I have enough people to do all of those things to protect all of you. What I have done is, and it's already been mentioned by Shari, my quality of life car, Officers Lopez and Rubite. They've been in existence for about 7 months. They work with the service providers. They contact the homeless. They have relationships with the homeless. They have helped to house 4 people since they've been working in the last 7 months. So that's a great thing. I'm also taking more resources out of my patrol. Starting next week, we're going to try a modified foot beat in downtown San Pedro, and we are going to be on Gaffey. Okay? So I'm hoping that that will help with the visibility, the homeless issue, and some of those other crime issues that all of you are dealing with and that affect all of you. The question about arresting them, is that the last portion of the
or arresting
question?
the homeless that are breaking the law.
If they break the law, we arrest them. You know, that's the bottom line, just as any other citizen in the community. Homelessness itself is not a crime. They commit a crime. We will investigate that crime. We'll take appropriate action.
Thank you, Captain Meek. Greg Spiegel. Mr. Spiegel, are there any plans to assist the homeless beyond what currently exists? By best estimates, there are only 50 beds available for 1 week for shelter. Is there any plan to address the disparity between the number of homeless and the amount of services available?
So I don't know about the number 50 number. I know there's a lot more shelter beds, but there's not enough. And so what we're trying to do right now is do an assessment with our partners at the county and city council and all the experts and service providers of what do we have and what do we need, what's the gap, and then have strategies for filling that gap. Where is the funding going to come from? How much do we need of each of the elements of a coordinated entry system, including housing? And until we really know that, we're kind of fooling ourselves that we're ever going to solve the problem. So we are working on trying to understand what is that resource gap right now.
Thank you, Greg. Captain Meek, what are the consequences that can be given to those individuals who choose to live on the street, do drugs, litter, and are a public nuisance?
Okay. As we said, not a crime to be homeless, so there's no consequences for that. And as far as doing drugs, littering, being a public nuisance, those are all very low crimes. And those people, if they are involved in those kind of activities, that they are not going to be sent to jail. They might be cited. Obviously, if you see that occurring, you need to let us know. We'll come and investigate it and, again, take the appropriate action. But those are low crimes, and it's not going to mean jail time.
In a follow-up to maybe Senior Lead Officer Deon Joseph, thank you, Captain. Can you tell us the difference between given a hand up compared to a hand out? Because we have a number of individuals who, again, God bless them, they're doing everything they can to help feed the homeless, but they're not working together. They're working throughout the community. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Absolutely. In Skid Row, we have a lot of well-intended people for decades come down to feed the homeless in Skid Row in the street. But that's a problem, and here's why. In Skid Row, we have 5 major missions. And we also have low-income supportive services that also serve some meals as well. So you're talking about a total of 9,000 meals, okay? And they offset their hours, so if you miss breakfast at the Union Rescue Mission, you can go to the midnight, and so on and so on. They also have clothing at the mission that they try to give out in an orderly fashion. They can't give them out. I've been down in their cellars where they have the clothes. It's hard for them to get it out because the people are getting their needs met in the street, which keeps the people in the street from utilizing the programs that they need to get off the streets, because the missions have excellent programs. I was a skeptic of the mission until I walked on the 3rd floor and saw people who I arrested, who I said when I arrested them, this guy's going to die in the streets, and they're running the program. The service providers do, the service providers do work, but A, they need an environment, and also you have to de-incentivize the street so people will begin to use the services. Feed them in the street, they're going to stay in the street, and sell your clothes, your food for crack cocaine.
Thank you. To Ms. Maddox, the City Attorney's Office. A question came up on Facebook. What is the legal baseline for relocation of people from one municipality to another? As we all know, dumping. We have reports of organizations physically moving unwanted people into other jurisdictions.
Thank you, Councilman. That is a really difficult question. The City Attorney's Office has worked on patient dumping issues, and that's, some of you guys have heard in the news, where hospitals actually dump some of their patients down into Skid Row and other areas. But unfortunately, as it relates to other municipalities, you know, sending or offering the opportunity for people to come to the Los Angeles area, we do not have any control over those issues. But what I do think we should do is to work with other municipalities within the Southland area to address that issue. So I think it's again, I think Mr. Spiegel showed on his slide that a number of the people that are homeless are from our area. However, we are aware that there are some instances where that happens, and as the part of the City Attorney's Office and the city family, I think working with our partners in other jurisdictions is really important on that matter. So thank you.
Thank you. Captain Meek, as we know, the City of Los Angeles is doing everything they can to hire more detention officers, have them go through the academy so that we can start filling our Harbor Jail. We know that our Harbor Jail is vacant. Question came up, can we use the LAPD Harbor Jail to house the homeless?
No, that's not really a viable alternative. The Harbor Jail is a Class 1 jail facility. It's licensed by the state of California. It's inspected by the state of California. As a matter of fact, we're going to have our inspection this month. So we have to keep that in operational order as a jail. We have a mandate that it needs to be able to be put into operation within 24 hours in the event of an unusual occurrence or an emergency. So it's just not set up or not a viable option.
Thank you. Officer Joseph, you alluded to this question earlier. You made mention of some, the question came up, some residents have identified or are looking for appropriate vacant lots or spaces as a potential dedicated area for homeless. Can you talk about the pros and cons of this idea?
The pros are, if you find an area and that it can be done and it's managed well, it's well staffed, the staff was not going to get paid off by the drug dealers to look the other way, it could be done. I'm going to be honest with you. But from what I've seen, when they've tried to create those things in the past, they usually end up becoming corrupted pretty quick. So, it depends on how well managed and supervised and well policed it is. And I'm going to be honest with you, the way things are now, law enforcement, we're stretched pretty thin. We're stretched pretty thin. So I'm leaning towards it not being a good idea.
Mr. Spiegel, another Facebook question. There's a great need for additional public restrooms in all areas of San Pedro for residents as well as homeless individuals. Is it possible to add restrooms to the current infrastructure? I'm going to have Officer Joseph tag team with you on this one, because based on what I saw on Skid Row.
So I think I come from a similar place as Officer Joseph on this. It seems like the standalone restrooms don't always work as good an idea and well-intended they are. It does attract a lot of things we don't want to happen. But what we really need, there needs to be more access to restrooms. And there are existing providers, there are existing buildings, there are existing restrooms out there, and what we need to do is fund for those to be open so they can be accessed 24 hours, so they can be staffed. We need staffing so that these restrooms don't get corrupted. So we need more restrooms, but it doesn't seem like the standalones are the way to go.
And Officer Joseph, I know the city installed a number of public restrooms in the Skid Row area. Based on my experience walking with you, they have not been successful. Can you explain why?
Well, what's happening is, with everything I said, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, they've been co-opted. You have these restrooms which were healthier alternatives to the Andy Gumps that we had spread all over Skid Row. They have an emergency button you can press if you're overdosing, you need help, you're being brutalized. The problem is when that door, and it self-cleans itself, which is great. The Andy Gumps didn't do that. It smelled horrible. But it opens every few minutes, you know, and that's supposed to deter people from staying in there too long. What happens is when it opens, you'll have 4 or 5 people run in at a time, and they start using drugs, having sex. I have a video that I wish I had time to show you of a lady who was telling me of her experience in the toilet while she was using the toilet, and 5 people rushed in while she was trying to use the restroom and just started doing all kinds of things right in front of her. And what it does is it breaks the scale. There are more people in Skid Row now, but there's less usage of the toilets because it's being damaged, because the more people in there, it damages the scale, and once again, good intentions gone bad. And we still have people overdosing in those tents, in those ATPs.
Captain, thank you. Captain Meek, what rights do residents have to ask a homeless person setting up shelter in front of their home to leave?
Well, the homeless cannot set up a shelter either on public or private property, as the city attorney stated earlier. Please ask them to leave. You have every right to ask them to leave. If you're not comfortable doing that, or they choose not to leave upon your request, call us. We will go out, we'll talk to them, we'll investigate, we'll take whatever appropriate action we can.
Thank you. To Shari Weaver, what can residents do as individuals to help the homeless problem? What is the directive to those that want to help?
First off, you can come and volunteer. That's one of the best ways. And I think one thing that I've already seen this community start to do is you're trying to get yourself informed and educated on what possible solutions are there for the homeless. How did the homeless get here? What can we do as a community? And I think by word of mouth and by continuing to band together that we can get this problem solved.
Deon, Officer Joseph, should you give money to homeless persons?
That's a tough question. I was that guy who gave money to homeless people when I was a young man. And then one day, and this is when I was living in the city of Long Beach, I gave a guy $5. He said I was going to get on a train. Okay, great. I went inside the store, came out, and I saw where my $5 went. He was at the corner buying a $5 rock of crack cocaine. That's not everybody that's out there. There are people who need money, so you have to follow your heart. I'm a man of faith, so in my faith it says if somebody needs something, you know, you generally don't ask what they need it for. That's one thing, and that's based on the fact that you don't know. But now that I'm educated, if I know, is giving that $5 to that person, helping them or hurting them. Because if I see that you look like you're a heroin addict or a crack addict, and I give you that $5 and you overdose and die, did I help you? No. So that's something you have to come to draw your own conclusion on. In Skid Row, I never give money, ever. We have people who go from Skid Row and they'll say, hey, Officer Joseph, see you later, I'm going down the street, okay. And then they'll get to the 110 freeway off-ramp in 6, and I'll see him with a blanket and one shoe on, shaking for change. This is true. This is true. So I don't give money in Skid Row, but you have to make your own call in different places. Yeah.
Thank you. Captain Meek, what is the local narcotics unit doing to clean up San Pedro? By the way, I saw them out in the streets yesterday.
Thank you. Yeah, they were out yesterday. Most of their time is spent with looking for and investigating people who are selling drugs. But we do recognize that people using drugs is a community problem, and they were out yesterday looking for locations where that's occurring specifically. They were at the park across from the post office yesterday. So they've taken a look at that, and they will come up with a comprehensive plan on how to deal with that problem. If you know of a place where people are selling narcotics, they would love to know that. If you know of a place where large numbers of people are using narcotics, they would like to know that too.
Okay,
you can give.
we'll get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me finish, and maybe I'll answer your question. You can give that information to your senior lead officer. They will give it to the narcotics officers. They will open a narcotics investigation. You can call their office. The number is 310-726-7840. You leave a message. They will also open an investigation. We track all of that information. You need to give them the best information you can, the time, the location, the vehicles, what the people look like, exactly what the activity is, because they will go there at different times and try and locate those individuals, and they may be going at the wrong time. So the more information you can give them, the better. And if you're willing to give them either your telephone number or your address so that they can contact you and get additional information, they would appreciate that as well.
Thank you. And sir, we're going to have John Jones connect with you to get the information and link you up with the senior lead officer. And by the way, I've been having great dialogue with Captain Meek and South Bureau Commander Tingrides as well. We're going to beef up our narcotic patrol here, going citywide, and asking additional resources from the city, citywide narcotic unit to come down. Officer Deon Joseph, can you explain the Lavon ruling? You mentioned the Lavon ruling earlier. A lot of folks here don't understand what that ruling is.
The Lavon injunction is an injunction that enjoined the city from destroying abandoned property that reasonably belonged to the homeless. So as a result, we cannot arbitrarily go and take something that looks like trash to us and throw it away if it looks like it reasonably belongs to a homeless person. So unfortunately, as a result, you have some individuals who become sidewalk hoarders, and they say, hey, I can collect this, it's mine, you can't touch it, and it's their right. Well, like I said, what we've been waiting for is clarity on what is deemed trash, what isn't deemed trash. Can they have a couch? Can they have office furniture? Can they have a broken sink, a broken baby stroller, and no baby? You know, these are these are things that we're struggling with, and unfortunately, it's given the criminal element a leg up on the homeless. So it's a struggle, and until we get some clarity on what we can and can't do.
And as far as, if I can piggyback on that, the City of Los Angeles is putting together a new ordinance, 5611. And what's being proposed is to ensure and demand that the property is removed by 6 a.m. with a 24-hour notice. Normally it's a 72-hour notice, working with the city attorney to up that to a 24-hour notice, especially as to move their belongings off the sidewalk, specifically those encampments that have become havens for unreported crimes.
Absolutely. And personally, I don't know if this is in the works or in the plans. I personally feel that we can use the law to actually connect people to services. What many of you probably don't know, with the Safer Cities Initiative, we had a program called Streets or Services, where we provided alternatives to jail for 2,225 individuals that we arrested for perceived innocuous violations. 30% of those people actually took us up on it and completed the program. Many of them got housed. So it worked. So you can use enforcement not to criminalize, but to connect people to services and get them into the controlled entry system and things of that nature. That's just a suggestion. You know,
to Ms. Capri Maddox, City Attorney, what rights do residents have to ask a homeless person setting up shelter in front of their home to leave? I think we already answered that.
You did, but you know what? While you're looking for another question, I can actually address 2 items that came up. I believe someone had a narcotics location, and I think your staff is getting that information. Yes. But I also wanted to point out that we have another great resource in our midst. We have Laura Halligan, our neighborhood prosecutor that works the Harbor area. And so thank you so much for being here tonight. And thank you for being a great resource to the community. The other thing I'd like to add is on the question that was for Deon Joseph, we have the Lavon injunction But what it does is it actually allows us to remove bulky items. So I just wanted to give that clarification because I think that the Levon injunction pretty much says you cannot remove property unless you have a reasonable belief that it is abandoned. But there is an exemption if it's hazardous waste, if it's something that's clearly trash, and if it's a bulky item. And some of you might want to know what a bulky item is. It's an item that cannot fit into a 60-gallon trash can. I think we have someone from sanitation present. Steve, thank you for being here. But you guys know those are the trash cans that are outside of a lot of the multifamily dwellings. So I just wanted to make that point very clear.
Hey, Capri, while you're up, I mentioned 5611, the ordinance. Can you address or explain the municipal ordinance 5611?
Right. The 5611 is a municipal code, municipal ordinance that is going forward. I think it's under reconsideration to a certain extent. But what it basically does is says if people leave their property out on the streets for more than 24 hours, it can be removed. And it also gives the exemptions that the property would be held and stored for a period of 90 days. You need to keep in mind that the city attorney's office does not want to arrest our way, prosecute our way, or remove people's property in a way to prevent homelessness. We want to deal with it in a more succinct manner, and I think we have a great resource in Shari to address that issue. But at the same time, we do need to keep the streets clean for all citizens, and I think that is what the real goal of 5611 is, to keep the streets clear so that people don't have to walk in the sidewalk, out of the sidewalks, into streets, endanger themselves, endanger their children as they walk down the streets. We want the streets clean and clear and usable for the homeless population and for the rest of the population, because we have 4 million people living in the city of Los Angeles, and we all need our sidewalks.
Thank you. Captain Meek, what do we do when another police response concern from a Facebook poster? Does that make sense, Facebook poster? What do we do when a call is made to Harbor Division and they don't respond at all, or they take too long to respond? Oftentimes, a problem we encounter with a homeless individual is already over by the time a car shows up, and then nothing is done.
Okay. The appropriate way to request police services is to call Communications Division. So if you've got a crime in progress, if you've got a life-threatening situation, we would ask you to call 911. That's how we dispatch. Okay. And I understand that you'll be put on hold, but that is actually the fastest and most appropriate way to get the resources and get the resources you need. If you try to call the Harbor desk, you're probably going to be put on hold as well, and they then have to call Communications Division. So that's an extra step. It's just going to take more time. If it's not an emergency situation, then we would ask you to call the non-emergency number, which is 877-ASK-LAPD, which is 877-275-5273. Okay? Then what Communications does is they prioritize calls. So code 3 means it's an emergency situation. Code 2 is a high priority call, and then there are non-coded calls. The more information you can give Communications Division, the better they can send you the appropriate type and speed of the resources. So I can tell you, actually, in the Harbor, our Code 3 response, our Code 2 response, and our non-coded call response, our average to all of those calls is better than any other division in our Bureau, and it is better than the average in the city.
Better than the average in the city.
Yeah, better than the average in the city. So they're working really hard. They're getting there as fast as they can. But the more information you can give Communications Division as to what's going on and who the problem is, it gives them a better idea on how to prioritize that call and how to send the resources. The more information, again, that you want to give about yourself. If you want to give your telephone number so that the officers or Communications Division can call you back. That way, if the suspect or the problem moves, but you might still be able to see them, then you can relay that information and the officers will still be able to make contact. It is unfortunate that on those non-coded calls, they're continually receiving higher priority calls, which is why those non-coded calls, it often takes us a long time to get there, and for that we do apologize. It's just You know, there aren't enough resources. But if you want to know what happened, if you want to know, did the officers drive around and find that suspect? If you want to know if that person was arrested, if you want to know what kind of investigation, if you want to be involved in that and prosecute for something that you saw, you need to make that your information available to the officers, and then when you make that call to communications, tell communications you want the officers to contact you. And they will either come to your house or they'll call you and they will tell you what happened.
Thank you. And by the way, you talk about community policing. As we know, our neighbors in the coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council led this LED light movement that aired on ABC 7. It's amazing to work collaboratively with the LAPD and the senior lead officers. Just a way to know that people, we're looking out for each other. Any knucklehead that wants to come into our hometown will be arrested, will be caught, and we're really proud of the neighbors and the neighborhood council, the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council, for taking on that effort. A question to Shari Weaver: what is a course of action for those homeless who refuse help or services?
Simple course of action: I'll be back to visit you again. It may take a week, it may take a month, it may take even sometimes years. What I found is that a lot of times they're meeting a virtual stranger the first time we go out and do outreach. They have no idea who we are and what we have to offer. And many times they've encountered outreach workers before that have promised them that they can get in a shelter that may only last a week or 2 weeks. They have some sense of hope and then once again are back out in the streets. Maybe it's not a male that they want to talk to, it's a female. Maybe if they're a homeless veteran, they need to talk to another veteran. So I guess the best way that I can say this is repeated engagement, returning to those that are living out in the streets and having those meaningful conversations. There's sometimes that even we as citizens of this community don't want that person that's knocking on the door selling whatever the heck it is they're selling. Same thing holds true for the homeless when outreach workers come out there.
Thank you. And our last question goes to Captain Meek. Can you please talk about the impacts of Prop 47? Another question came up from Facebook. Or Capri?
Yeah. I'm going to turn that over to the city attorney.
Okay. So Capri Maddox.
Thank you. So Prop 47, as we know, it was approved by the voters, 60% in November of 2014. It pretty much took more serious crimes, those that are known as felonies, and made them misdemeanors. We're talking about some of the thefts that used to be felonies that are now petty thefts, which are misdemeanors. And we also have some drug crimes that have become misdemeanors as well. We have, and actually, some of the crimes that involve people using personal drugs, if you're using illegal drugs for personal use, it's pretty much, I shouldn't say not a crime at all, but it is treated as almost as if it's not a crime. And it is an issue because some of the more serious crimes that were felonies need to be addressed. Again, and I think people are looking at Prop 47 again to see if they would like to make some changes. But as it stands now, they were trying, the intent was to make sure that we didn't criminalize those people that had a substance abuse problem. If people have a substance abuse problem and they're arrested for a felony, maybe that can inhibit their ability to get a job, to get housing. And so I think the original intent of Prop 47 was to help people that were struggling and to make things better for them so they could have a quality of life. We are concerned that the Prop 47, there are people that believe there's some concerns as it relates to Prop 47 causing crime to go up. Prop 47 is being studied. It hasn't really been around for a full year yet, so we do have a number of entities that are studying that fact. Cal State LA, the City Attorney's Office is taking a leadership role on it. We also are working with our stakeholders at the District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Office, and other law enforcement service providers. So we are evaluating it, and I know a number of groups have written editorials on this issue as well, so it is something in the making, but we are looking at it, particularly because crime has gone up since the passage of Prop 47.
Thank you, Capri. Let's give our panelists all a round of applause. So, ladies and gentlemen, our goal tonight was to put a spotlight on people who have spent their entire careers working on the homelessness issues so that they can help us better understand the challenges of homelessness and allow us to collectively decide what kind of role we want to play in our community. The internet, and specifically Facebook, has given us a pretty awesome tool. It has given every single one of us a platform to connect with each other and express our sentiments. It has brought us together tonight as one community, studying together how to write our history. The community has its standards, and by the reaction online and the amount of people that have attended tonight's event, it's clear that this community has a desire to enforce those standards. The foundation of our community standard is peace, prosperity, health, and family for all those who live here. And I hope that we can all continue to work towards that standard. And I didn't come here tonight to claim that I own the answer of solving the homelessness issue. This issue, as we heard tonight, is complex, and it will take the city, the county, the state, and federal governments working cooperatively on many levels to solve. However, I did come here tonight with action items that we can all start with immediately at the local level. 1, because of the success of our emergency response team, which came online at the beginning of the year and which is responsible for engaging and matching 76 people with housing options, I will be quadrupling our efforts. Previously, we had a 2-man team. Starting immediately, we will have 6 interventionists doing the work. Additionally, thanks to my partner in the county government, Supervisor Don Kanabi, we will be supplementing the efforts of the expanding emergency response team by adding a 2-member mental health street team that will engage and work with the homeless population. It'll be the perfect trifecta: LAPD Quality of Life Car, the mental health unit, and our emergency response team. The LAPD Quality of Life Car, amazing individuals, Officer Rubright, Officer Lopez, they've done their work. 100, listen to these numbers, 102 arrests, 76 citations, 500 field interview cards, and over 1,000 contacts in 8 months. In addition to the Quality of Life LAPD car, as you heard from Captain Meek, a footbeat patrol in downtown San Pedro and on Gaffey Street between 1st and 14th Streets will be deployed. Number 3, I've written a letter addressed to all mayors in the South Bay, including Long Beach, Rancho Palos Verdes, Torrance, Lomita, Carson, and Gardena, requesting their buy-in for shared responsibility to the homelessness issue. We all need to do our part. We all need to express our love and help those in need at every level in city government. Like we're doing here in the Harbor area, they need to step up their commitment to provide services and housing. We know that decentralization of services coupled with permanent supportive housing works. It's not fair to the few communities in the county that house the majority of service providers. And in this letter, I'm calling on the creation of a special committee within the South Bay Council of Governments focused on homelessness that will allow us to share experiences, ideas, best practices, success stories in our own respective cities. 4, we know that permanent supportive housing is the correct path towards solving this issue. Currently in my district, Council District 15, we have 311 supportive housing units that have recently become available or are in the process of being built. They include the Vermont Villas, Blue Butterfly Village, 127th Street Apartments, and El Segundo Apartments. Because I know that permanent supportive housing is the right path towards a real solution, I will work towards promoting more public and private investment into permanent supportive housing. 5, thank you. 5, because there is so much interest and passion in town about the issue of homelessness, I'm launching, here in San Pedro, I'm launching the San Pedro Community Homelessness Task Force, which will be co-chaired by Ray Regalado, a San Pedro resident and senior relations specialist at the LA County Commission on Human Relations. In the next few weeks, I will name the rest of the task force members from our community who will be responsible for shaping community standards related to dealing with homelessness. The first assignment I will give this task force is to create a plan for a coordinated consolidation of food banks in town. We heard and learned tonight that the unintended consequences of a simple act of offering food may enable an individual to continue a negative spiral of substance abuse and illegal behavior. Food should be available. It should be available to those in need. But it should come from professional sources that have the ability to offer additional resources, making the individuals with the highest need more visible to those that can help. And the cleanup efforts, I want to acknowledge the Department of Sanitation, Watershed Protection. You've seen them in the white suits cleaning up our sidewalks down here. Thank you. Many of you saw the video of the cleanup that we did at Ante's restaurant. That was a large and high-profile encampment, and that's why many of you already know about it. However, we do cleanups every weekend. I will continue cleaning these encampments whenever and wherever they materialize. As we learned tonight, they are unsanitary, illegal, dangerous, and are a magnet of drug dealers and rapists. Allowing encampments incentivizes the worst-case scenario. Drug dealers and gang members prey on these individuals who need our help the most. Mayor Garcetti has publicly stated that he will soon unveil the homelessness investment plan. Over the past 8 months, we have illustrated a proof of concept and are scaling our efforts here in our community. I know his plan will provide even more resources, and I look forward to the plan's release and taking advantage of its offerings to help even more people come off the streets and into housing in my district. Lastly, tonight we heard that Harbor Interfaith Services work. We have seen and heard from their most recent clients. We have heard our panelists sing their praises. It's blatantly obvious that we should do all we can to help Harbor Interfaith scale their efforts. So tonight, I'm proud to promote the launch of the Harbor Interfaith GoFundMe campaign. Each and every one of you, you're here tonight because you care about this issue and want to know how you can help. Some give money, some give food, some give clothing, but if we collectively together focus on all of our energy on what is working, then we as a community need to focus on supporting Harbor Interfaith Services. I want to end tonight with calling up my pastor from Mary Star of the Sea Church, Pastor Harrigan, to help. We will go on our way, hoping you can enjoy tonight's First Thursday festivities. But I asked Father Harrigan to close us in prayer. Help me welcome Father Harrigan.
Perhaps we could bow our heads. Let us pray. Eternal Father, thank you for the reminder tonight that every human person that you've created in your image and likeness has a dignity as your son and your daughter. Help us to help them and allow them to teach us so much. As we continue to come up with solutions to these various challenges that you've presented to us, give us your Holy Spirit, a spirit of wisdom, of understanding, of counsel, of knowledge, of piety, of fortitude, and a fear of the Lord. We ask this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. This is one of my proudest moments as a council member to see so many of you here tonight. May God bless you, and let's get to work.